Hello all, and welcome to our second installment of Below the Surface. I'm your host, Stephanie Cavigliano, and here comes my co-host, Darshna Kamani. Welcome, Darshna.
Thanks, Stephanie, and I believe it's a happy birthday to you.
Oh, yes, thank you. I celebrated a birthday over the weekend.
And did you have a good celebration?
Yes, it was small this year, but that's quite all right. I had my boyfriend and my best friend over. We had pizza and sweets, which are, all of my favorite things.
What more could you want? Pizza and sweets, I'm in.
Yeah, it was delicious. It was a delicious day, which is right up my alley. So yeah, thank you. It was lovely here in California, a little hot, but what else can you expect at the end of June, right? I'm used to it.
Oh, you can definitely pass some of the heat over into the UK. We need some of that. It's windy here today.
Yeah, you guys can have some. We have plenty to spare.
Perfect. So should we start with the show?
All right, let's get on with it. So last week, we discussed email protection. We talked about Barracuda's new ebook, the 13 email threat types that you need to know about right now. You can still download that for free on our website. But today we're going to shift gears a little bit. And we're going to focus on another area of cybersecurity, securing the network.
We are indeed, and with some great insights and an equally great guest. But before we get started, don't forget to add comments or questions below, and we will make sure to get to these later on. So let's move on to today's show. So if you saw our promos, we're meant to be joined by Tim Jefferson today. Due to unforeseen circumstances, he isn't able to join us. However, never fear, we wouldn't want to let you down. So we have invited Mike Goldgof to step in. Mike heads up product marketing for Barracuda's data protection, network, and application security products, and was pivotal in the research we're going to discuss today.
Mike definitely has some great insights, and that's why we've invited him to join us today. He might even tell you it's an upgrade. So Mike's going to come on and talk to us about another recent report recently released by Barracuda, where we surveyed global IT decision makers on their attitudes and opinions about SD-WAN adoption, along with data about acquisition preferences, variations by industry, and a variety of other related issues. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. It's great to be on. Very exciting topic today. Looking forward to it.
And lovely to have you on, Mike. So what do you think? Pizza or sweets or both?
Definitely both.
Both? Sweets on the pizza?
Yeah. Any way we can get it.
Get crazy.
Perfect. Okay. So before we get going on the research findings, we thought it would be good to go back in time a little and have a look at the evolution of network security over the last 20 years. I believe this may help set the scene around the research. So Mike, can you tell us what networks were like 20 years ago?
Sure. So they were basically campus and branch networks. So you had headquarters with a big switch and firewall, and it was connected to branch locations, and it was basically there to connect people so that they could communicate and also connect them to data.
Mike, tell us why people started building data centers.
Yeah, so what happened then was the growth of the internet, and with the growth of the internet came web applications. And so people built data centers to house their web app servers, their data stores, things like that.
Okay, so we have data centers. So then where did software as a service come into this? How does that play into this network story?
Absolutely. So people wanted to access their applications in the cloud, and a bunch of providers started building software as a service applications. Some of the examples are Office 365 or Salesforce. And eventually that also led to the emergence of the major cloud providers, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, things like that.
All right, so essentially we've moved from data centers to software as a service, or SaaS, which is really just moving from a private data center to one that somebody else owns, right? We have a little saying at Barracuda, friends don't let friends build data centers. So we shifted to a SaaS model. It's a lot easier in some respects. So tell us what happened next, Mike.
Yeah, so then came the digital transformation. Things got really interesting. What happened there was the value started to shift very quickly from physical assets to digital assets. You had more and more customers that started to compete based on how quickly they can build these applications and turn them on. And so that really changed things around. And this is where the things like agile development, DevOps processes became key, because that all sort of leveraged the speed, and this is where the advantages of public cloud really became very apparent, because as you said, friends don't let friends build data centers, and part of the reason is it takes a long time to order servers, put software on them, turn them on, and it used to take months. And now with public cloud, you could do things in days or even hours in terms of what used to take so long in the data center. So that's kind of the evolution.
Fantastic. So plenty of advantages there. The diagram that you should be able to see on your screen soon shows enterprise public cloud access. Can you explain what's shown by the dotted line?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're seeing here is basically that campus and branch network that you started with, but with the addition of the data center down on the bottom, and then you've got the public cloud on top. So this is kind of a hybrid situation. So you've got some apps running in the data center, but more and more in public cloud. And so what that dotted line is showing, it's very important, is what's called a direct internet breakout. So because if you're sitting in a branch, you're running Office 365, let's say, you don't want to be backhauling all the traffic through the data center. You want to connect directly. In fact, Microsoft recommends that you do that for best performance. So that's kind of what's going on here. You basically, people are changing the network to fit the application consumption pattern, if you will.
Okay, so we're seeing a definite evolution of the network here that we've been through within the past couple of decades. But what are we thinking about for the future? How are we seeing that?
Right. So in the future, we see the public cloud is quickly becoming the new normal. And so in addition to in the public cloud, in addition to infrastructure as a service, you are starting to see now network services such as virtual WAN, that's Azure Virtual WAN. So you now starting to see network as a service as well. And so, this is very key because, it again adds to that agility, being able to build fast, innovate quickly, while leveraging this whole global infrastructure where you can have applications in different regions. And, a key challenge to customers today is to figure out how to evolve their networks to fit this new reality.
Okay, so thank you for that background and some future vision. That's been really helpful. So shall we dive into the research? Barracuda commissioned Vanson Bourne to carry out research on our behalf on a variety of topics around public cloud security. Back in February, when we published the initial results in the report entitled Future Shock, the Cloud is the New Network, what we found out in this report is organizations are moving infrastructure to the public cloud. Security is the top concern, restricting an even faster adoption of public cloud, and secure SD-WAN is the solution of choice to secure access to public cloud. So, since secure SD-WAN is a key solution to secure access to the cloud, we asked more questions about these deployments. The findings were recently published in a follow-on report entitled Secure SD-WAN, the Launchpad into Cloud, which you can find on the Barracuda website. So let's delve into these findings, Mike.
Yes, absolutely. Some very interesting and unique insights from 750 IT decision makers that we went out with a survey to across the globe.
Okay, Mike, so let's start, how about with the cloud? How quickly are people moving there?
Yeah, so the data is showing that 45% of the organization's infrastructure is already in public cloud. So it's moving quickly, and what it's showing is that it's going to get to 75% within 5 years. And it's U.S. is a little ahead, but it's very consistent among the regions. This is definitely happening, and it's happening fast. And it's not surprising to me that it's happening so fast because of the advantages of public cloud I just talked about. This awesome compute power that you get, the ability to quickly deploy applications, things like that.
And I mean, Mike, I'm sure in the current situation we are all in, that the adoption of public cloud will probably increase even more quicker than we're expecting in the next 5 years or so. I mean, there's a lot of benefit to moving, an organization's infrastructure to the cloud, like you mentioned. However, from the research that we found, that we conducted, 70% say security concerns would restrict their organization's adoption of public cloud. Can you tell us why security is such a big barrier?
Yeah, this is a really interesting topic because early on, when the public cloud providers were just growing, there was this sentiment that maybe, is it really secure in the cloud? And by now, we've seen that the actual infrastructure that the cloud providers provide is very secure. But many organizations don't yet know how to secure their own applications in the cloud and their own data, how to build it securely.
So that worry is really understandable, especially considering that from the research, we saw that 75% of our respondents had actually been the target of a cyber attack. But it seems to me that would imply that security should be seen as an enabler rather than a barrier. So is SD-WAN deployment the answer? The research shows us that 74% have deployed or are considering deploying SD-WAN within the next 12 months. Are you surprised by this, Mike?
It is a little surprising how many have already deployed, given that it's really still a new technology, relatively new technology. But it makes sense considering that people are deploying the apps in public cloud, what their consumption behavior is, switching to software as a service applications more and more. And basically their existing network is just not a good fit for this new architecture. And SD-WAN has been proven a viable alternative. And it brings major benefits: performance, security, cost savings. It's definitely exciting to see how quickly the uptake has been growing.
Definitely exciting. However, from the research, we found that it varies greatly by industry. Do you have any specific examples, Mike, that come to mind where people have implemented SD-WAN?
Yeah, well, first off, if you download our report, you will see the information on 10 different industries. And that, I mentioned unique. It's pretty unique to see the actual SD-WAN deployment patterns. And later we'll see it's not just how quickly it's happening, but maybe some of the motivations behind it. But in terms of industries, yes, I mean, if you look at public sector, for example, where budgets are very limited and sometimes they're behind on new technologies, you see only 7% have already deployed SD-WAN. But then you see financial services, and they're at 35%. And of course, some of the drivers there is they're dealing with money, they're dealing with private information, and they're hence targeted by cyber criminals. But I think the one interesting thing to see here is financial services happen to be some of the most risk-averse organizations out there, and just the fact that they have deployed on such scale already is, a great validation for, SD-WAN technology.
So things are definitely going to be different in the cloud, and organizations face challenges when it comes to securely accessing the public cloud. Now, if we think about in the data center, a firewall is typically used to set really strict policy on who can access certain information. Now, our research found that 42% found that lack of control over who has access in the public cloud is one of their biggest challenges. So can they sort of remediate this or accomplish this with SD-WAN?
Yes, definitely. But what you need is more of an all-in-one SD-WAN solution that includes security with granular policies. Those granular policies is what's going to allow for access to public cloud and secure access. And this is where the challenges come in today, because a lot of customers are trying to combine technologies from different vendors to different technologies of firewall and SD-WAN and combine them correctly so they can achieve the same level of security that they're looking for.
And then to add to this, the second biggest challenge that was cited is backhauling traffic. Why is that a challenge?
Yeah, so see, what happens is that people try to use their existing networks without modifying them or or minimize the modifications, because they're afraid to change their security policies or to restructure the way that things are accessed. And so what they end up doing is they still have that big firewall in their data center. And what they're doing, all of the traffic, whether it's Office 365 or a web application in public cloud, they're still taking that traffic, backhauling it through the data center where they apply policies, security policies, and then they forward it over to the branch. And that is kind of leading to a lot of frustrations with some of the migrations where people, for example, they move from Exchange to Office 365. All of a sudden, they've got latency they're experiencing at a branch. They've got increased network costs, and that is all because Tim Jefferson, our SVP, actually calls this architectural anti-pattern. What you've got here is that your network does not fit the way that people are accessing and consuming applications. And this is what this is this particular challenge is. How do you restructure a network so that things are operating optimally?
So it definitely seems that SD-WAN is going to be the most efficient, most secure solution when moving to the cloud. However, what we found out in our research is that there's an overwhelming preference to acquire this type of security and deployment through a public cloud provider. So where does this leave security vendors like Barracuda?
Yeah, this is really interesting, because what survey is showing is that while people are indicating the preference to acquire via a cloud provider, they're also finding that cloud providers do not have sufficient offerings as it relates to security. And again, all of the major cloud provider, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, have proven that their platforms are actually very secure. It is all about, how does an enterprise take their applications and their data and deploy it in public cloud securely. So it's not surprising that people want to get it from their cloud provider, because they're seeing thousands of controls that the cloud providers have in their own platform for security. But it is the challenge of how you take these controls and apply to your own applications in the cloud and your own data. And so this is some of where third-party security vendors come in. But in order to make that work, they have to take their platform and fully integrate it into the cloud service provider.
Okay, which to me makes total sense, and I understand why organizations should use third-party vendors. So then why do organizations want to acquire SD-WAN this way?
Right. So we've asked that question, and we've got responses. Simplicity of adoption was top, but there was cost, there was the ability to get full solution. We got the 5 top responses that were all very important, which is sort of a kind of an unsatisfying answer. But it turns out that once you dig in there and you start looking at the information by industry, things are very, very different. So the example I'd like to use is retail. For retail, simplicity of adoption is by far the most important factor. And it's not surprising because retail organizations are highly distributed. They've got these stores all over the place. And they've had web application deployed for a long time. Now they're moving them into the cloud. They're going to SaaS. And so, for them at these locations, thousands of locations, they don't have access to a lot of IT or security expertise. And so the simplicity of adoption is very, very key for them to deploy easily, to scale easily, manage these highly scalable solutions.
Right. We want to keep it simple, for sure. So Mike, thanks so much for taking us through some of the research and some of the key takeaways from Barracuda's report on SD-WAN adoption. Let's shift a little bit. I want to hear your thoughts on Barracuda's public cloud vision and how we can support organizations.
Right, absolutely. So what we're seeing is most of our customers have already moved or are moving their applications to public cloud. And in addition, I mentioned that before, in addition to having infrastructure as a service, the cloud providers are starting to offer network services. So there's like this network as a service that's emerging. And a key challenge and a key need for customers is to combine security and networking as they start to utilize these new services. So you're in a situation where you're building everything in public cloud. You need secure access. Public cloud really has become the new data center. There is no perimeter anymore, no central location. You've got applications that are everywhere in regions optimized for the consumption patterns. And so what you need to do is you need to build a highly dynamic secure access pattern to be able to leverage these things. And at Barracuda, we've built a technology for SD-WAN. It's very mature. We call it TINA, or Transport Independent Network Architecture. We've had it for over 10 years. And so what we see and what we are working on very hard here is combining that with full integration into the public cloud platforms to really allow customers to programmatically build their SD-WAN using native cloud platforms. And, we have worked on a number of services as part of SD-WAN that provide that ease of use, that simplicity. We have a unique zero-touch service that allows deployment across hundreds and even thousands of sites that automates orchestration into that environment to allow customers to build SD-WAN easily and securely. So I'm really excited about aligning our new technologies with the customer needs as they continue to migrate into the new accelerated public cloud migrations. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to end by teasing you with an exciting announcement that's coming by the end of July. So stay tuned and watch this space.
Definitely. Thank you, Mike, and stay tuned and watch this space. We'll have Mike back on to let us know what that exciting announcement is. It's been great talking to you, Mike, but unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. Thank you for joining us on Below the Surface and providing some amazing insights.
Thank you very much.
Mike, that was a heck of a tease. I'm dying to know what the announcement is, I gotta say. So I'll stay tuned.
July.
Some really great insights. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thanks for having me. Take care now.
All right, everyone. Don't forget to go to barracuda.com for all of the insights from this report. You can download your copy right now.
Thanks, Stephanie. And don't forget to follow Barracuda on LinkedIn for the next installment of Below the Surface. Until next time, have a safe journey.